Fantastic. The last time I was here, about 2 years ago, I think, we had the Power Trio, which was really a rocking show. You know, when you have a full band like that, it was really fun to do. We couldn't wait to come back. But on their poster this year, they said Adrian's going to do a wild, live, scorching, high-energy set. Well, that's not really what I'm going to do, because I don't have the Power Trio to do that with. So I'm going to do kind of a pensive, introspective song. And I expect a few of you might even close your eyes at times and even fall asleep. It's okay. I want to play for you some new guitar music, demonstrate some of the things I do at home when I'm sitting around with nothing better to do. And I'll start with a song that I put on a record already. The rest of the material I'm going to play for you is all brand new material, so it's not on any record yet at all. So strap me in the driver's seat here. Everybody okay? Here we go. up for that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind you asking me some questions, or I'll ask you questions if you'd rather. First, let me play another brand new piece of music. This one was named by my daughter, and it's called Rainbow Unicorn. Mercifully short. Okay, you can go away now. Computers never listen to me. I think maybe we should start our question and answers now, if that's okay with you. We have whatever time we want to spend on this, so raise your hand, speak loud and clear. How about you?
What's the status of King Crimson?
The status of King Crimson's good band.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of records and things, yeah. Robert Fripp is taking a hiatus. I don't like that word, but hiatus. Yeah, he said that he wants to take a few years to get his business affairs in place and get back to us later. So I said, well, that's great. Whenever you're ready, just let me know. I'd rather be in the parade than on the sidewalk. So, so if he wants to do more, of course, I'd be happy to do that. In the meantime, though, I have some good news. The rest of us players from King Crimson who are still out there playing live, that would be Tony Levin, Pat Mastelotto, and myself, have combined our two trios, the Adrian Blue Power Trio and their trio, Stickmen, and we are going to go out and play as a double trio, playing an entire set of King Crimson material. First in May in Russia. I'm sure you probably will be there. But if not, you can catch us all over the United States in June and July as the opener for Dream Theater. It's not King Crimson, we're calling it, Robert's idea, Crimson Project. Yes, I like it, so. He's the king part, you have to leave that off. So. Yes, sir.
Okay. I really enjoyed the work you did with Les Claypool and Danny Carey. I think Matchless Man is just one of the most superb things you've put your fingers on. I just adore that song. Is there any chance you might ever get to work with those guys again?
I just did work with Danny Carey,
I saw
actually.
that.
On the tour that we did, he came and played a couple of shows with us because our drummer Tobias had to go to a drum festival that he'd already booked previous. And it was great. He took me for a wonderful ride in his orange Lamborghini. Boy, that was just something, man. Like being in a jet, you know. Les, I see every now and then. Of course, I would love to work with the both of them. It's just that, you know, it's time. It's, you know, different schedules and so forth. We're all remaining very good friends. I respect them a lot. They're great players. And I love what we did together. It was fun working with them. I'd like to do some more. How about you over there?
How many bands have you played in?
Well, before I was famous, there's the Elvis Imitator band I was in for a while. There was the Holiday Inn Lounge band that I played drums in. There was my first teen band, the Beatle band, that was called the Denims, because we wore denim suits, you know. And we had a denim thing on my bass drum cover that said The Denims. See, after that, I went through a spell where I can't remember who I played with after that because it was just a bizarre... Oh, Sweetheart, I have to mention that. That's the band that I was playing with in Nashville in a dark little dank club called Fanny's when Mr. Frank Zappa came in and heard us play for 40 minutes and came up and shook my hand and said, I want to audition you, and got my information. So that was the next band. It was in Frank Zappa's band. Let's see, after that. You heard that one, right? You didn't do that for the Denims, did you? See, how many is that so far? 4 or 5 at least. And that was probably at least... Oh, there was another band briefly called Adrian. It was a power trio. It's the long, short story, really. You don't want to tell that. That's 6 bands. Let's see, Frank Zappa then. Let's see, after that is a little-known band called David Bowie. And then there was another small outfit from New York City called the Talking Heads. How many are we up to now, about 8 or 9? Let's see, after that I joined this strange band called King Crimson. Then I started a band called The Bears. And they played in, and they're friends of mine still to this day. After the Bears, let's see. I guess I've had a couple solo bands to tour with me. I don't think that really counts. And they were never given a proper name. And then there would be the Adrian Blue Power Trio. I think that's enough. There's probably more in there. Is that enough? I've been kicked out more than I've played. How about you?
I know the first time I ever had the pleasure of seeing you was with the Bears back in Cincinnati, and I was just curious, any plans, schedules permitting to do any sort of reunion back in the area?
They're hibernating right now.
Want me to shout at Bob?
If I can get them out of the cave, you know, the man cave. Now, it's possible. The way things work in the Bears, we're all old friends. We've worked together all our lives on and off. And whenever everyone has enough cool new songs that we feel are right for the Bears, somebody makes the phone call. And they come to my studio for a few weekends and we put together a cool record. I love working with those guys. We don't tour because they all have kind of real jobs. They're not like me. They have actual jobs. So, yes?
So I don't mean to change the subject drastically here or anything, nor do I mean it to be a segue into anything, but I've seen you play a few times now with your new guitar. And I love it, first of all. But I question, I only see one cable coming out of it. Are all your guitar tones originating from the VG99?
Oh, no. Actually, this chord that you see coming out is a 13-pin chord. It's a MIDI chord. So there's actually 13 lines coming out of that. One of them is a regular guitar line.
Oh.
And then some of them go to MIDI and so forth. So I'm actually going into a guitar box as well as a VG99, as well as this computer over here. So I've got multiple sources of sound, which is why behind me I have different types of speakers. Some of the sound, like the loop I made earlier, was coming out of just those speakers, and the guitar sound is coming out of here, in an effort to expand my horizons. Yes, way back there. Let's go way back there. I can barely see you. But
Along with that, in the first track, what did you use to get that big, fat, analog archetype sound towards the end?
that was a,
In your rig, how did you
yeah,
do
my
that?
one of the devices I have over here called an Axe Effects. And what I did with it is I took a guitar sound and layered it so that it had an octave of the same sound below it and an octave above it. So you've got basically an 18-string guitar. And it's a nice sound. I've used it in other things, of course, too. Yes, you with the hair. Not you, but him behind you.
Can you talk for a second and compare and contrast what it's like working with David Byrne and David Bowie, two of my favorites?
Yeah, well, it's always hard to epitomize such, bright, innovative personalities as these guys. They're all normal people when you finally get to be their friend. Well, normal's maybe stretching it, but they're people. David Byrne is mainly just like you think he is. He's just really quirky out there kind of guy. The kind of guy who go into a deli and order a tongue sandwich. That's David Byrne in my mind. I never get that picture out of my mind. Who orders a tongue sandwich? I don't know. David Bowie's far more complicated. I mean, he's an actual superstar. At least he was at some point. I think these days he doesn't care about that. But he came, when I came to David Bowie, it was a bit like, wow, I'm in a new universe here, because he's a superstar, and everything changes when you're in that atmosphere. You're flying around in first-class jets and things, and private cars and limousines, and you're meeting Dustin Hoffman and Mick and Bianca, and, so it's a different world. But I loved working with David, especially the second time around when we did in 1990 we did an entire world tour, and it was 27 countries, 108 shows, and we were so together all the time that I actually felt like we were really great friends. The first time around, which was in 1979, I didn't really feel that way. I felt more like a hired hand, which is what I was. But by 1990, I gained status of friend. He's a brilliant guy. I love being around him. I still email him, and he must live at his computer, because no sooner than I email him, he shoots an email right back every time. It's amazing.
Well, don't mess it up.
Man with lots of hair says I know. What about you? Before you had a question, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to hear a little bit about how you really got interested in guitar in the first place. Was there somebody's playing you really liked, and from that point, how you became the unique musical personality you are now with the more unorthodox types of melodic sounds and things, how that kind of evolved?
Well, it'll be a bit of a history lesson here, but I actually never really had that much of an interest in guitar per se at first. When I was a kid, I used to sing a lot, and my relatives would gather around and listen to me and say, "Oh, you're so cute." I thought, that's the way I get to get some attention here, be a singer. So I always sang. Then when I was 10, suddenly I wanted to play drums. I wanted to march around at football games and parades and stuff, and I did that. I got in this junior high school band. Then I got my first band, the Denims, and in that band, I was the drummer and the singer, one of the singers. I didn't play guitar at all yet. And in fact, the last thing I remember before I switched to guitars, I remember going to see Jimi Hendrix in concert, if you can imagine, and it actually inspired me to want to play guitar. That wasn't the total reason, though. The real reason was because I started imagining these songs in my head. They would just pop in my head, and I had no way to work them out and demonstrate them or play them for anyone else. So I got sick in my junior year of high school. I got mononucleosis, which is called the kissing disease. I think I kissed the water fountain, really, is what it probably was. I don't remember kissing anybody else. And they said, you can't play drums, you have to stay at home now, be totally quiet still, don't move, sit there for 2 months. Okay, now what am I going to do? So I borrowed an acoustic guitar from one of the guys in the Denims, and I taught myself to play my own way. I just kind of figured it out somehow. I could hear, okay, this is a note I want now. Where's that? Okay, that's right there. Now, what's the harmony I want to hear is this. So where would I put my finger for that? It's a painstaking way of learning guitar, all wrong. And that's what started me. And then I could actually play songs and write songs. And that went on for 3 or 4 years to the next couple of bands. And by that point, I was getting to be a better guitar player than drummer. So, and it truly rang true to me that that's your real voice. You're meant to be a guitarist. How did I get unorthodox? There was nothing else left. Everyone else was doing all the other stuff. So there was a point when I had learned the mechanics of the instruments, and I could sound like all the players I'd learned from on record. I could do my Hendrix imitation or my, Chet Atkins picking or whatever, but I didn't have anything in there that sounded like me. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to stop playing these habitual guitar licks that were created by someone else and replace them with something. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do to replace them with anything, but I just started with, I've always liked sounds. And I've always thought, maybe the guitar would be something you could make sounds with. So let me demonstrate a little something here for a second. So one day I was messing around and a car drove by and I put my guitar on and went, I thought, yeah, I can make a car sound. I can make that happen. I can do that even better. So when it would come time for me to solo, instead of playing, the typical bluesy licks, I would throw a car horn or two in there, and people seemed to like it, And then I started, with my obsession with big animals, rhinos and elephants and whales and things. And just about that time is about the time in my guitar life that Frank Zappa walked in. And I don't think it was so much that I could make a menagerie for him. I think it was more that he needed someone who could sing and play guitar at the same time for his rather complex music. So, and it just went from there. I mean, from that point on, it was just kind of like, this is the guy that does weird things with the guitar, and I like that. I really still enjoy it to this day. I like to try to do different things with the guitar, not just the typical things. Go ahead.
Speaking of Zappa is just one of the most important American composers we have. You have one of the most rare opportunities and insights. If there's anything you want to tell us about Zappa, I'm all ears.
Wow. That's a tough thing. That's a couple of books that I'm supposed to write, I think. Well, I'll try to get really personal with it. To me, I came into he came into my life, and I joined into his life, totally green. I mean, I didn't know anything. I'd never even played in an odd time signature. I was used to being in cover bands playing pop songs, and that's all I could do at that point, except make some car horns and seagulls. And so it was just a huge leap for me. I was the only person in his band, one of the only people he's ever hired, that didn't read music. As I said, I'm totally self-taught. So most of the musicians he auditions and tries out are very good schooled musicians who can read really good charts and things. I was not that guy. So what happened when he decided to have me in his band is he said, well, we'll rehearse all week, and on Friday night you'll come home with me and I'll show you what we're going to do the next week. So that's how that came about. We rehearsed for 3 months. So for 3 months I spent every weekend at his house, and I got to be, I got a bigger dose of Frank in his real life and otherwise than I think most people ever do. And then I played with him for 1 year. That was our agreement, to play together 1 year. And it was kind of like a crash course. I went to the school of Zappa. It was a crash course, but it was really not just in music. The remarkable thing about Frank was he told so many brilliant stories, and some of them were hilarious too, but they all had a lot of information. And if you listen carefully, you would learn really what it is to be a professional musician. How do you tour the world? How do you have your own record label? How do you master a record? How do you make a movie? How do you play in 7 and chew gum at the same time? And all those things were given to me by Frank. It was an invaluable thing, as you say. And that kind of kick-started everything for me. And of course, then the end result was I was traveling around the world, which is something I I actually never thought I'd do. I don't know why. As much as I thought I was going to try to be a successful person, I never thought, well, you have to travel around the world to do that. So the first thing that happened is we went through America, and then we went to Europe, and when we went to Europe, David Bowie came to the show and hired me on the spot. It was amazing. I'll tell you the true story. We were playing in Berlin. 2 nights before, we had played in Cologne, Germany, and Brian Eno was there. And Brian Eno was working with David Bowie as his producer, and he knew that David was going to be going on a new tour and wanted to get a new guitarist. So he saw me and he said, called David, said, you've got to go and see this guy who's playing with Frank Zappa. So within the night that David was there, no one knew he was there. There was a point in the show where Frank would step out front and take a long guitar solo, and just the bass player and drummer would play, and everyone else would leave the stage. But when I left the stage, I looked over there at the monitor board, and there was David Bowie and Iggy Pop standing there. Whoa. So I walked over and I said, hey, David, I just want to tell you thanks. I love your music. He said, great. How'd you like to be in my band? I said, well, I'm kind of working with that guy over there. I said, yeah, but your tour ends and mine starts 2 weeks later, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about this. So we went off and talked about it. So Frank opened many doors for me. Yes?
Question, you went from, you're in a room with an acoustic guitar, teaching yourself the world stage. What are some bad habits that you had to unlearn and relearn, something you regretted, something you would do different if you could go back and save some time learning it differently?
Well, the thing is, you know, I have plenty of those, and I never actually corrected any of them. So I don't hold a pick right. I don't really know how to do cross-picking or any of that fancy stuff that you're supposed to be able to do, and I just do it my own way. My wife told me just on the way to the airport that I actually don't walk right. I didn't realize that at all. I've been walking all my life. So, you know, I just kind of take whatever happens and turn it to something good if you can do that. One more question, and I'll play some more music. How about you?
What was the recording process like with Zappa? Were you aware that you were tracking, or?
Well, here's an interesting thing. I never recorded in the studio with Frank. I didn't get the opportunity to do that. I'm on 8 Zappa records by now, because they keep putting out different records with songs that we never released. The first one was called Cheek Your Booty, and it was followed up with the movie and the soundtrack to that called Baby Snakes. Well, all of that was done live, on tour. Not just in the shows, though. Frank was an amazing workaholic. He would bring us in and do a sound check for 3 hours and record every bit of it. And we'd learn 2 or 3 new pieces of music and play them that night, you know. So it was when we played in New York City, we made Baby Snakes, we rehearsed 3 hours and then played 2 3-hour shows. It's kind of, you had to be young. That's stupid.
That's how you get good.
What?
That's how you get good.
That is how you get good, when you have someone that's a taskmaster like that, especially if you trust him and respect him greatly as I did. So I never actually got to go in the studio. The first studio record I ever made, I will tell you about this, because I think this is a curious way to start making records. As I said, I moved on, joined with David Bowie, and Brian Eno was his producer, and it came time to record a David Bowie album, which was going to be my first time in the studio. The studio was in Lake Geneva, Switzerland. It was right on the lake there. It was formerly the gambling casino that burnt down, oddly enough, when Frank Zappa was playing there, and from which they wrote the song Smoke on the Water. It's a small world, you know, but I wouldn't want to paint it. Anyway, when they rebuilt it into a studio and stuff, they made it like a concrete bunker. And the first floor was the control room, and then you went up these concrete stairs, and right above the control room was the room where the musicians actually recorded and played. You couldn't see the people in the studio, but they could see you via, you know, circuit TV. So they could see you. So I gave them, they already had 20 tracks recorded by the rhythm section, and they said, we want to try something with you. We want to get your accidental responses to the music. So just go upstairs and put your headphones on, and you'll hear somebody count off the music and start playing. Play now. Well, we're not going to let you hear the music. For what key? No, you don't have to know what key it is either. Really? Is this how they make records? I didn't know that. So I would go up and play a song on here, and I'd just try to figure it out as it was going by, and make some car horns or something, you know. And then they let me do that maybe 2 times, maybe 3. But as soon as they got the inkling that I might know the key, that was it. I'd move on to the next song. And what they did, they would take then their favorite little accidents and put them together in what you call a composite track. And that is what you hear on I'm a DJ or Red Sails or any of those songs on the Lodger record. That's all me being tricked by David Bowie and Brian Eno. They have a way to make a record. Now I actually listen to, I know what I'm doing, sort of. Let me play a new piece of music. It's a little bit long, but it demonstrates some of the new techniques I'm learning and finding out that to me there's no end to what you can do with this beautiful instrument right here. I just can't imagine ever running out of new ideas. What I really like is technology to do something that I can't do, and then it inspires me to work with that idea and try to write some music. So I'm going to play a piece of music that, until I had this computer and this new layout that I had, 6 months ago I couldn't even have written this piece of music. I've never heard a way you could do that before. It's called Variations of Wave Pressure. Wish me luck. This is really it's not the easiest piece I ever wrote. What am I doing? Okay, anyway. So that's Variations of Wave Pressure, brand new piece of music. I haven't even had the time yet to record that one, nor some of the other ones that I'll play over the course of the evening. Let's go with some more questions. Hey, you're a woman, aren't you? I rarely see those at my concert. I've heard about it.
Is your wife as musically talented as you?
She did take concert piano lessons, but that's not what she followed in her life. No, my two daughters are very musically talented, and I think maybe I'll have to keep them out of the music business somehow. They might be driven to do what I do for a living. That'd be terrible. How about you?
Just curious, that last piece you just played, how much of that was improvised, or was it strictly?
The only part of that was improvised was the very end part where I soloed and then played all the traffic noises. All the rest of it is very much composed, and you have to be very accurate with what you're playing because you're playing to delays, which means the timing has to be perfect or it gets to be a jumbled up mess. So the interesting thing is, as I was saying, with this new technology that I've been working with, I figured out that you could actually try to sound like two guitar players and a bass player at once, which immediately appealed to me on the basis that there would only be one hotel room to pay for. You had a question? Yes.
I did. Was sort of off the last question. Does your wife understand your music? Because I think I can speak for most of us when I say ours never will.
My wife likes the songs I write. You know, Monte Kudasai. But that I just played, I'm shortchanging her actually. She is, my particular wife has so much to do with my career. She's really, truly a remarkable person. She manages my career and homeschools our two girls, both at the same time, and she's done a really good job with both things. Without her, I wouldn't even be able to feel about she never gets tired of me. How about you?
How hard is it to keep track of all the stuff you have to do? The song you play, there's a lot going on. That just seems impossible to keep track of.
I wrote that song in 5 sections. Technical explanation would mean that each one of those sections has a different sound of programs, different notes and different delays. So I wrote one at a time, and then I put them together as one piece over time. So it was, you know, it was quite a bit of practice to do that. But I felt like since they're all in the same exact family, it might be nice to just put them all in one piece. You know, it's rare that I do a piece that long, except the piece I did last year with the orchestra at Metropole Orchestra in Amsterdam. We did a 43-minute piece that I took 3 years to write, which you should see, by the way. It's a DVD you can get at my website. It's called E for Orchestra. And by the way, I'd love to play with your orchestra here. Okay? Just tell them if you all see this. How about you, sir? Yeah. Oh.
With the orchestra.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
I was agreeing.
You were just applauding.
Yes.
I thought that was some. Sorry. How about you?
Could you tell us some of the features of your signature guitar?
Sure, I can. I could talk about this guitar for an hour or so if you want, but I'll try to keep it brief. First of all, let's start with this unique pick, because I always overlook this pick. And this pick is interesting because, look, it sticks on my guitar. And it's not sticky, actually. It's some sort of space technology, I think. Alien. It's not sticky, though. It sticks there. This is the Parker Fly. This is, in fact, the Adrian Belew signature model Parker Fly. Yes! I'm so happy to have one of those now. This guitar has actually changed my musical life. It actually has made me want to play more, and it makes me play better. And that's because, and primarily because of the neck itself feels so great. You can play faster, smoother. And secondly, this guitar, you'll notice, as much as I abuse it, it doesn't go out of tune, which is unbelievable to me. That, to go back in history 50, 60 years ago, when electric guitars came into being, there was the Gibson school of thought and the Fender school of thought, and pretty much everything that has transpired since then came from one of those families. Until Ken Parker, the man who invented this guitar, took 20 years to invent it, and what he did is he tried to solve all the inherent problems that guitars normally have. They go out of tune, the tremolo arms don't work, you have to replace the frets, the necks move with humidity and so on. lots of little problems that almost all guitars have. And he solved them all and put them in this guitar. So it's a brilliant piece of revolutionary guitar, if you ask me. They asked me to do my own signature model with it, and the only things I wanted to change was to really update the electronics, because he invented this guitar in the 80s. So there were things I could do now electronically with it that couldn't be done then. So I added in a sustaining pickup, which means when I put the sustainer on with this knob here, any note that I play will just sustain as long as I hold it, almost like a violinist bowing the instrument. And I can turn it off with that same knob. We made it a MIDI guitar, which means that I can play through things like keyboards and synthesizers and computers. You can only do that via MIDI. And the third thing I changed was we put in this little device called the Line 6 Variax. The Variax is a modeling unit that does models of vintage guitar sounds of all types, about 25 different types of guitars. There's Gibson guitars, Fender guitars, Rickenbackers, Gretsch, acoustic guitars, banjo, choral sitars, dobro. I mean, it's an amazing list, and they're all right here in this little knob. If I press that knob down and dial the one that I want, then I can make this guitar sound like a totally different instrument, which is brilliant. So that's the things I changed about it. The final thing I would mention is I think so much of my playing and expression comes from the use of the tremolo arm, the way that I bend notes up and down and all over the place, because to me, that's the heart of it, the matter. You know, some guys just like to play fast and they don't care about that. But I like to bend the notes and get some feeling into it. Well, I always had problems with that, because almost all the other tremolo systems, that's what this is, on Gibsons and especially on Fenders, would just go right out of tune as soon as you start doing that, so it's almost self-defeating. This one doesn't. He reinvented this as well. And what it does is it has, instead of springs inside, it has a piece of metal that flexes like this and brings it perfectly back in tune. It has locking tuning keys, so when you run the string through, you tighten it up in the back, cut it off, and it will never slip or stretch or do anything. So those are the reasons why it stays so perfectly in tune. Then, because I'm a car nut, we put 12-stage custom car finishes on these that, as you can tell, catch the light nicely and so on. This is a very, very nice instrument, and not many people would certainly wouldn't start with this instrument, because it's you know, kind of expensive. I had to sell one of my children to get this one. But the good news for all of you who care is that we now are introducing, this is why I'm here at Sweetwater, to try and get everyone excited about the second version of this guitar, which looks slightly different, more conventional, doesn't have the Variax, and sells for about $2,500 less. So we're getting to the point where you guys can own one. We're getting there. Yes? Hi.
I'm standing up because I want to make sure we have witnesses. Would you play with our orchestra here?
I would love to do that. Okay. I wish we had thought of this before we came and did this show. I would have liked to have shown you the DVD of our performance in Amsterdam with the Metropole Orchestra. It's quite amazing.
I know Andre Rieu coming back to perform with us too. I was curious if you would. That'd be great.
Well, I haven't done it here in the States yet. I would like to find a place that would support the idea and make as much out of it as possible. Sweetwater could do that. I think it's a perfect venue. Fort Wayne seems to be a town that supports those kind of things. It's hard to get done in most places in the States because, you know, there's a lot of funding involved and all that kind of stuff. But it would be worth it to debut it right here. I'd love to do that. So we'll see. No promises. It's just an idea that we're talking about today. Okay.
In addition to the orchestra work, and your playing palette of sounds, and you did mention soundtrack work earlier, have you ever decided to maybe really go into soundtrack work just for a couple of big projects and just release yourself there?
You know, I've always tried to write my music in a cinematic fashion. I like to try to make it so that you can imagine visual things happening with the music. And I've done that all my career, so I've always thought, wow, someday I should do soundtracks, but no one's ever asked, really. So until recently, And I won't tell you too much about this because this is my big secret for next year. But next year I might finally step into the world of soundtracks. And I'm going to start at the very top and work my way down. I'm really excited about what I might get to do. It's, as with everything, especially in the movie business, it's even worse in the music business in the sense that a lot of things get started that never get finished. So I won't say that it's for sure, but if it does happen, you will definitely know about it, and you will enjoy it, I guarantee, because the people I've been working with are geniuses. Yes?
I know you probably can't go into too much detail now, but where is there a place I can go to go read thoroughly about all the software, the hardware, the pedals, the configuration?
Well, to read about this guitar and the newer one, you should just go to Parker.com and go to the what do they call it, signature series. It'll show the artists and stuff, and there's only two of us, me and Vernon Reed are the only two artists who have a signature Parker Fly.
The software, the hardware?
The software and the hardware and stuff, that would not really be available yet because, to tell you the truth, this is kind of still a work in progress. Myself and my recording engineer, who's here, Daniel Rowland, who's been designing this for me, have really taken it on ourselves to basically shrink everything I have down into the smallest package possible so that you can go to Lithuania without worrying about showing up with no gear. So this is kind of a working process. When it's done, I will naturally do some articles for magazines like Guitar Player and stuff, or online articles. In fact, I think I've already told Guitar Player Online that I will give them, kind of a real insight as to how we decided to do what we decided to do. But we're not finished yet. We're still got a few little things to tweak, and then we'll be done. And it's a pretty small thing. This is the box for all the pedals. This box has the VG99. This box here has the computer and the guitar unit, and I can fold this up, put the lid on it, and carry this box on the plane with my Parker Fly on my back. So I'm getting, as far away from baggage handlers as I possibly can. Okay, one more question and we'll go back to some music.
Could you explain the recording process you did on your album, Mr. Music Head? Did you do that at home?
No, I did not do that at home. I did it in a very lovely studio in the woods in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And it was a great experience. It was a very high quality studio at the time, one of the best in the country, really. It was owned by an eccentric millionaire, but I didn't care. I just wanted to use his studio. So the way I recorded the record, though, I had this idea that I wanted to use certain particular elements only. One element was I wanted to play piano, but I only wanted to play the low end of the piano and kind of write, lines that would start from there and then build things on top of that. I wanted to use certain different kinds of percussion. I had certain different sounds, and I wanted to kind of discipline myself not to go outside of that. So kind of like a painter who can choose 6 colors and make one painting out of it. You can't choose all 12 or whatever. That's what I decided to do, and that's why that record, for the most part, has a very unusual and I would say, cohesive type sound, except for the one song, Oh Daddy, which had nothing really to do with that. I did that as a joke, really, for my daughter. She wanted to sing in the studio, so I said, well, here, I'll write you something. I wrote Oh Daddy, and consequently, that's how I got my record deal with Atlantic. They heard that song and liked that song. The rest of the stuff that I was actually intrigued by, they didn't care about. So,
that's you playing drums and everything, right?
What's that?
That's you playing drums and everything.
I play everything on all my solo records for the most part, yeah. Except there's one that we did recently, a live record with the Power Trio. But my solo records is where I can indulge my all those other things. I love to play anything I can get my hands on. I've got a Japanese koto, a cello, a flute, piano, 3 different drum kits. My studio is like a wonderland. It's like a big toy store, and I'm always in there fiddling around. And basically, sooner or later, if I work hard enough, I can get an acceptable noise out of most of those things.
Do you have a Neve console?
No, I use Pro Tools, like so many people do, and it's great. Daniel is, as I said, my recording engineer. He comes over, and we just jump in, and right now, I'm in a creative flood, I have to say. It's only going to be is only going to be cut off by having to go and tour. I don't mean that in a bad way. I love going and touring, but that's going to put it into the creative flow. But right now, things are pouring out of me. I don't know why, but it's a great creative period for me right now. And at some point, you'll get to hear all the new stuff, you know. And I'm very pleased with where it's going. Yes.
You mentioned that you play multiple guitars through the Is there a favorite tune that you use, and do you mix tunes?
That's the main thing I actually do with the VG99. By the way, for you who don't know this technical terminology, this unit over here is called the VG99. It means virtual guitar. And what you can do with it is, one of the amazing things you can do with it is you can, especially because this is a MIDI guitar, each string has its own pickup. So you can go in the VG99 and tell it, I want this string not to be tuned to E, I want it to be F sharp, or I want it to be this or that. So you can develop these entire different tunings. Now what it sounds like when you finally get something is interesting. Here's a normal guitar chord through my normal guitar sound tuned the proper way. Here's one of my tunings that I've made up with the VG99. Now, that sounds very weird, of course, and it's almost humorous how weird it is, but in fact, when I put it with the other guitar and I play with it, what you end up with is two different sounding guitar players playing in two different tunings that really physically is actually impossible. Even if there was another guitar player, he certainly wouldn't use that as his tuning. So when you put the two together, if you take this, it'll be... Now if I put this in, the second guitar, the virtual guitar... You get something like that. See, this is what I like to do most in my life. Is I like to take technology and let it and fool with it and get it to inspire something that I couldn't ordinarily do. It's one of my favorite things. I also love to sit down and just take an acoustic guitar or a piano and write a song, you know, in a more conventional way. Sometimes I like to just go in the studio and start building an idea out of anything, you know. Okay, let's put this here and we'll add this, like a painter might do in a painting. So I have a lot of multiple ways, you know, that I like to approach music, and it's what keeps me fresh and keeps me happy and stops me from forming too many bad habits. Yes?
All right. So what I was just listening to is sort of what I was thinking. You and Robert Fripp have two real competing voices. How long did it take for you guys to kind of jive together? Because like all this technology now, you've almost like got a virtual Robert Fripp in the background.
I do, in fact, now have Robert in a box here. I'll let him out every now and then. Well, originally when we started, and it was Robert's idea that we would have this kind of gamelan dual guitar thing where you play these skittering lines and you play against each other and you play with each other. And there's some really interesting things that go on there, almost mathematical things, why they lock together and why they come apart and they come back together and so forth. Those were Robert's approach. And it took us, when we first started, and I joined the band in 1981, it took me and Robert, I'd say 6 weeks of daily 6-8-hour sessions of sitting there working these things out. And then came the real chore. He was done at that point. But now it was my time to try to write a song with that. Try to write a song with something that goes. Try that sometime. It's not easy. I'll show you the Robert thing. This is kind of fun. Rather than play another piece of music, maybe I could just explain some really interesting thing. That's the song called Frame by Frame, which was on the first Crimson record that we ever did called Discipline, and it demonstrates this idea very clearly. What it is, it's a figure that's in 7/8. It's played twice in a row. This would be the figure played twice in a row. Okay, Okay, that's the figure that I play. Robert plays that figure as well. But then, after we've played it together in unison, he departs from it by dropping out one note. So then, instead of him playing essentially 14 notes in a row, he's playing 13. And it goes all out of whack with what I'm playing, and it keeps going around and around and around, and after a certain amount of time, no matter what, mathematically, it's going to join me again. Perfectly. And it's kind of fun. So I can do it with my looper and demonstrate the way it actually works between Robert and I. You ready, Robert? What I'll do is I'll record my part first, and then I'll record. Then I'll play his part against my part. And you'll see. So here's my part. Wait, let me start again. Here we go. It's a lot of fun, you know, but you have to have two maniacs, and you have to be willing to sit for hours a day with just the two maniacs looking at each other like this. Is there another?
Yeah, obviously I think Crimson's one of the greatest bands ever existed. And I've seen you about 4 or 5 times. Can you explain how you were first approached to join Crimson, and is the writing in Crimson collaborative, or do you all each bring in your own pieces?
Okay, I'll start with the end if you don't mind. Is the writing in Crimson collaborative? It is between me and Robert. What generally happens, and has happened almost the whole time, he usually comes and lives with me for a while in my studio, or my, you know, I've got a place down there we call the Fripp Suite. It's got his own bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, and everything. And we work on these things every day. And what we do is every day we work a few hours on 2 or 3 different ideas, and we advance them the next day, keep advancing them, or adding a new idea until finally we feel like we have at least what I would call a blueprint of, you know, 8 or 10 good pieces that we'd like to bring the band in on. Then we call a real rehearsal where we set up with real gear. I mean, when we're writing this stuff, we just sit like this, unplugged. Two guitars like this. So when we get enough material, though, we bring in the band, who's ever in the band, say Tony and Bill, and then we start taking these ideas and they start adding their playing to it. And it gets to a certain point where you say, okay, now, is this meant to be an instrumental piece, or is Adrian supposed to sing something? If it's an instrumental piece, the band kind of joins in more and gets more involved in it. If it's to be a song, then it's turned over to me, because the idea is, well, if you're going to sing something, you should write it. And so I write the lyrics and the melodies, and at that point I may go back to Robert and say, well, in order to accommodate the melody I have, we'll have to change here, and we'll have to change to this, and so on. So that's how the song part of it works. And there's another thing, which is where one of us brings in something that's kind of full-blown, and the band just works on it together. But in general, it's the two of us as a writing partnership. I'd say that's fair to say, even though I would say that, you know, the other players put something into the mix too, of course, but they do that, they're supposed to do that. That's why we have them. What was the first part of your question?
How you actually first came to be at Crimson?
I was on tour with Talking Heads, and we went to Europe. We went to London. For the very first night we were there, we were all jet-lagged and everything, and they took us out to a Russian restaurant. And the Russian restaurant had a holding area where, you know, you were waiting to go downstairs to where the restaurant was, and they just kept bringing around these trays of vodka, and they were lit. They were lit, like 20 shots of lit vodka. And I remember standing there, and there's a woman I didn't know at all standing next to me. Everybody's kind of crowded together. This tray comes through. Her hair caught on fire. And I'm hitting her on the head like this. Sorry, you're on fire. So by the time we got down to the restaurant, I don't think we even remember eating. We were pretty zonked out there. Next morning, I was not known for doing anything like that. That was very out of character for me. I didn't do drugs and didn't drink hardly anything. So it was just a celebrating moment, you know. So the next morning at 8 o'clock, Robert Fripp called me in my hotel room and said, hey, I know you're not one for partying down, so I hope you don't mind I called you at 8 o'clock in the morning. My head was just exploding, and I said, Robert, could you call me back in about an hour? And he did call me back, and he said, you know, Bill Bruford and I want to start another band, and we want you to be in the band. And I said, done. Whatever, I don't care. We can call it anything you want. So his idea at first was to call it Discipline, and then we auditioned bass players in New York City, and Tony Levin joined, and then we had the full band. And over the 6 weeks where we were working out the material and stuff, as I said, there was this kind of undercurrents. You could tell that everybody was really thinking, why do we call this King Crimson? But Robert was really resistant to that. And then one day he said, well, whatever we call the band, it's Spirit, it's King Crimson. And I said, why don't we call it King Crimson? And Tony said, yeah, we don't like Discipline. You know, maybe in Europe that's good, but over in the United States, Discipline, nah, not so good. Not that attractive of a name, you know, really. It brings up to mind a lot of, you know, torture and things. So that's how it got to be back to being called King Crimson. That was certainly a great day when they did that. Because, like yourself, I was a huge fan of King Crimson before I ever met them, or of course I never dreamed I would be in that band. They were, for me, kind of second to the Beatles in terms of the band that most influenced me as a musician that I listened to. And I listened to King Crimson records and just think, how in the world do those guys do that stuff? What planet are they from? Then one day I woke up and I was on that planet. So I don't know how that happened. But, so, you know, I had such a great respect, and still do, for all the early King Crimson stuff. I thought the same as you do. It's just something unique about it. It's up here a little bit. And so when we finally got to call it that, I was really, really happy, because I know, just suddenly it felt like, oh wow, now I'm in a really great band, you know, even though it was already a really great band. Okay, one more question maybe? How about you?
You still have that brownie outfit you wore on Baby Snakes?
No, that was a rental. I actually have the cap. It was Halloween, and we were in New York City. It was a tradition that Frank Zappa played in New York City at this large theater every year at Halloween, and all the crazy Zappa freaks would come out. You'd see people with space suits and stuff, and it's like, okay, well, whatever. So what they said is, well, we want to, you know, put the band in costumes tonight too, because we're filming it for this movie. So our road manager went out and found costumes for everyone. Well, what I normally wore with Frank, I got in a secondhand Army surplus store, was a paratrooper's jumpsuit. Because I thought, well, this, no one's ever jumped out of a plane and played guitar at the same time. I don't know what I was thinking, you know. But I thought, well, it's easy to deal with. So my road manager went out, and he actually found the female version of what I was wearing, a whack outfit, and perfectly in my size. And brought that back, you know, and then we were rehearsing, and he said, look what I got you, it's perfect. I said, you want me to wear a dress on stage? Oh, yeah, it's going to be hilarious. Okay. Have you seen my legs? So, you know, I remember being there, and the show was going great, and cameras are everywhere. They have 5 or 6 guys with cameras, and I went back and sort of stripped my clothes off and put on this whack outfit, and they were filming me doing this. And I just before it was time for me to step out and play, I thought, boy, I hope this is funny. I'm not so sure about this. What if it's not funny? Unfortunately, we had to give back the whack costume, but I think he purchased the hat, which I still have. It's a nice little hat. I wear it all the time.
Hey, Adrian.
Yes?
So, will you play us one more song?
Absolutely, yes.
I forgot to say some things. First of all, big hand for the man. I'm nervous because this is mine. Was it great? Was it great? I got two things to say, and I should have said this in the beginning. First, a big round to Parker for bringing Adrian on. Parker, and for making Adrian
To Bill Lowe.
And
to Bill Lowe, who
and
is the
Bill's
man from
standing
Parker.
there. Raise your hand, Bill. Mr. Parker over there. That actually came. And Daniel's over there. He's the engineer. He actually makes all this work.
He makes all this work.
Yeah.
Can I say thank you from you guys?
Yes, okay.
I really want to say
Well,
thanks so much to Sweetwater. Chuck, all the Sweetwater family, you guys don't know what you have in this city, but it's priceless. It's really a great company. Thank you.
So, and then the last thing, thank you very much, and thank you guys again for coming because it's such a great turnout, and we're going to do it again. But I have goosebumps. I'm sorry. Anyway, the other thing is, speaking of goosebumps, Adrian's going to sign out there. He's going to go backstage. I think he's putting on a costume backstage. And then there's a table out there, so everybody goes straight out to the table so we can get him signing stuff as soon as possible. But
This was going to be a party dress, actually.
and one more song and one more big round for Adrian. Come on.
This is another brand new piece. In fact, I don't really even have a name for this one yet. I hope you feel like you got your money's worth. Thank you for coming, and I'll play this one more piece for you.
autograph stand if you want. Thanks so much.